Hello and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach Insider. My name is Ben.
And I'm Chris.
And thank you for joining us for one of the most SuperCoach relevant sides in Geelong Cats.
Excellent. Now, I'm going to start this off with a bit of a... Oh, you hear that? That was me opening up this beer.
I popped early.
Now, there's a reason why I'm actually popping this beer, and that is that this is our 100th podcast. So that's pretty cool, hey? 100 podcasts with you guys, the community.
Mate.
We're pretty proud of that, really, I think. So
Never made 100.
No. Did you know? I said to you today, but I was like, oh, I'll plan this.
Chris.
Third podcast in, we're going to do it.
It might surprise you. When you talk, sometimes I don't listen.
This is true. This is true.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, so pretty chuffed with that. So thank you to out there in the community. It's a pretty big achievement, I think.
That's super cool. Breaking milestones, hey? Look at
Yeah,
you. No wonder you're all chuffed and excited.
I know. You should see me. Anyway, let's get into Geelong. Obviously, they had a fantastic year last year. But let's go through it. They've got the... We'll just go jump... Are we going to just jump straight in? Yeah, okay, cool, sweet.
Yeah, jump in.
They've got the round 12 bye, so obviously that's the first one. So good for trade-in targets. Not necessarily for starting players, but we can work through that. They've got a mixed start to the season. They play the Giants away, then they play the Suns at home, so that's going to be a loose one. Then the Eagles away, and then the Hawks at the G. So it's sort of a bit of a mixed start. The finals run is Melbourne at home, Dogs at home, Giants at home, and Saints at Marvel, with Adelaide at home in round 23. They actually don't leave Melbourne after round 17, with 4 of 6 of their games at GMHBA.
Well, you mean Victoria, because Melbourne and Geelong are a little...
Yeah, literally, it's like...
Someone picked me up on that already. I was like, okay, Victoria then. They don't travel far. They sleep in their own beds.
Basically Collingwood.
It's fine. Yeah. Basically Collingwood.
Trust me, Geelong, the trip's not that far.
It's not that far.
It's only in traffic, and they're driving it. Yeah, they're not those
They're basically Collingwood, but more broke.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Their double ups are pretty tough. They've got the Giants, Saints, who are tipped to obviously improve. They've got the Lions, Hawks, and Eagles. So it is a pretty tough double up session. They can handle it though. I mean, they finished the year last year with a minor premiership and a whopping percentage. They had 135 percentage points, which is huge.
Shocked a few people, to be honest.
Yeah, and more shocking was that they hit a massive black and white brick wall in the first qualifying final.
No, they slowed up right at the end of the season anyway. I think teams started to...
They figured them out.
Yeah, figured them out. And they were really impressive, though, because they really did the squeeze Geelong, and they tried to keep it predictable and really stop the switching as well. I noticed that against the Lions when they came towards the back end of the year, where they really just pushed up and squeezed to stop you from switching. And then once you don't switch and they go down the line, then the people that were actually pushing up, they actually keep moving further down the ground. So they did quite well.
Yes, they did. And I think they're very well coached. I really rate Chris Scott as a coach. They obviously then knocked out the Eagles right before meeting Richmond. So they had one of the toughest runs.
They nearly beat Richmond too.
I know. It could have gone both ways. But then the Richmond ended up running over the top of them at the end. They ranked 3rd in the league for SuperCoach, which makes them obviously SuperCoach relevant, which is great.
Just say so they go like you after a six-pack, Chris?
Pretty much. But the staple to their entire brand is winning the contest and winning the ball in the contest. And that's highlighted by their contested possession rate of 42%, which was only bettered by the Lions last year. Oh. So they really dominated contested ball and didn't have as much uncontested ball. Lions, obviously, as you noted in our Lions podcast, they were great at contested ball, but didn't really go with the uncontested possessions.
We were definitely down the bottom end for uncontested.
Yep. They rarely turned the ball over. They actually ranked 15th in the competition in turnovers. So this meant their ball movement was pretty much king. And they also ranked 3rd for marks inside 50. And of course, I think they were 2nd in contested marks. Big part of that's obviously someone like Tom Hawkins, who's taking a hell of a lot of marks and in pretty good form for that. But they do have a fairly good side. Thank you for the zoom there. I was really struggling. My eyesight's not what it used to be.
Well, watching you cringe like that, Chris, it does my heart.
So which is very, very impressive. I think their list profile, one of the unique things about Geelong is they've got a disparaging list profile. What I mean by that is, it's probably the wrong word. They've got a lot of older players and a lot of young players, but they don't really have a lot of guys right in the middle, and that's part of what they're trying to do this year, is change that. They want to get more experience into their youth, whilst also still pushing for a premiership. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that through the season and how deep they go.
Well, for starters, just give Constable a bloody free run, and that'll be nice.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Now, off-season wise, they delisted Jordan Cunico, Jermaine Jones, Scott Selwood, unfortunately, was delisted as well. Wiley Buzzer was delisted, and then Tim Kelly, of course, went to West Coast, which was the big move of the off-season.
Yes.
And Zach Smith went back to the Gold Coast. They did delist Lockie Henderson, but they re-rookied him, so he's on the rookie list. And they also grabbed some list needs in Jack Stephen, ideally to replace Tim Kelly, and of course Josh Jenkins, who replaces Zach Smith.
Well, not only that, like Kelly was so good on the inside, but you could replace him with
15 of their current players on their list.
So many. Like, not only that, you've got your Jack Stevens. You could also then put in your Constables. You can even put in Menangola. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
they can get a mixture between guys that were midfield forward. Yes, they might have the polish. They might not have the polish of a Kelly, but they can make up for it.
I think the best thing about their young players is that they play their roles really well. So Chris Scott asked them to do a job and a role, and it's a very specific job and role.
Yeah.
And they go in there and they just do that job.
So I think
they've got one or two things to focus on. They just go and smash it.
Okay.
So really good.
I might wait for your opinion here, Chris. But I think Menangola could actually be one of the biggest improvers.
He's on my list.
There you go.
They also promoted Zach Guthrie and Sam Simpson to the senior list, and they retained Blake Schlensog, Ryan Abbott, and Oscar Brownless on the rookie list.
I thought Abbott moved.
No, they retained him on the list.
Lucky.
He delisted and then re-rookied.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously Tim Kelly was the biggest mover, and he had a stellar year. However, their depth has taken a bit of a blow. So people like Smith, Selwood, Buzzer, even though they weren't consistent players in their team, they were part of their depth rotation. And so they'd have lost a little bit of their depth. And I think that's going to trend to continue whilst they retain their big money, really experienced players in Dangerfield, Ablett, Selwood, etc.
Yeah, Ryan Abbott, St Kilda, Ruck.
Oh, he went over there. Did he really?
Hey, you gotta listen to me.
I don't like listening to you. Again,
anyway.
When you talk, sometimes I don't. Interesting. So, look, there's more depth that they lost in their ruck department.
They did lose.
So,
Smith and... Yeah.
Yeah. So, not great for them, but they seem to be able to rally around that. They've got quite a few tools that can, pinch hit in the ruck, etc. So, we'll see how they go this year. Starting off with their premiums in the defence, obviously, we've got Tom Stewart, 533k. He averaged 98.2.
Oh, please tell me you have the latest news how he is injured.
Yeah, sure. But I will say this about Tom Stewart before you get to his injury. He was actually proved to be a fairly consistent performer in defence. He did start the year averaging 101.25 in the first 11, and he trailed off averaging 94.5 over the back 10. Has a fairly high floor with a season low of 74 in round 19 and only 3 scores in the 70s. So fairly consistent without being a blow your ways type of defender.
Yeah. So what we say by fairly consistent and not going to blow you away means that their price in SuperCoach Standard won't really fluctuate much. You're going to pick him up for the same amount. He's not going to blow you away. He's not going to lose you too many games. He's not going to make you go from the top 5,000 to 1,000. He's not going to hurt you in that aspect, but you'll get him at the same price.
I'd sort of put him in the same category as, say, a Rory Laird. Where
you wait for a couple of 80s, you get him.
Yeah, and not to mention, you can probably get him upgraded during the buys or something similar.
Good buy target.
I also looked at just to see if there was any correlation. Obviously, Zach Tui was injured again last year. But he only averaged a flat 100 with Zach Tui in the side. So I can't really draw a conclusion as to whether he performs better or worse. It's all sort of around the mark.
And then Tui also went forward, I think.
Yeah.
Because the back line was kind of doing well.
Absolutely.
Without him. So Stewart, though, did have minor surgery. I think he had a bit of a setback and had some minor surgery. Yep. So he is not 100% at this point in time.
Which is great because I really don't see him as a starting option.
That's good.
But with the first buy, I think he's a perfect.
Yep. So hopefully he drops in price a little bit.
Upgrade.
Starts off slow and bring him in.
Absolutely, and I think you can pick him up for 500k in round 12.
Oh, hopefully
as your last or second last defensive upgrade.
Yeah.
And I really like that as an idea because again he's not going to let you down. His scoring is just very similar. He obviously takes kickouts. He intercepts. He does a bit of everything. So I really like Tom Stewart, but not to start with. I think he's definitely someone that you upgrade to.
I agree.
All right, moving on. Straight to the midfield because there's not really much else in defence. Obviously, Dangerfield. I think you start with there and you end with there.
Start there, end there. That's all you need in between there.
Look, I had a couple of questions today about Dangerfield and a little bit of questions. I think everyone wants to question Dangerfield.
Well, the reason they questioned Dangerfield, let's look from the other side. He went from 130 to 120 to like what 115. Oh, he's dropping.
Which is a valid way to look at it. But let's look at it a different way. He's played 230 of 242 games in 11 years. He's literally missed 12 games in 11 years. 6 of those were in his first 3 years.
I know. He's played 106 out of his last 110.
Yeah, it's like that's insane in itself. Has averaged 110 plus on 7 of those occasions. So 7 years in a row, he's averaged 110 plus, which is crazy consistent. His most recent output also included a 26 in round 7, where he was injured twice in the same game. I don't know if you remember, but he did his ankle, went off the ground for a quarter, came back, did his knee, went off the ground for another quarter.
Yeah, because he ran and jumped up and landed funny. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, why are you back on the field? Just get off. We don't want you permanently injured. But he managed to pull through. I think he only played 56% game time. So taking that into consideration, he had a true average of 119.65. So you're paying, I think, 113 for him. I think he's priced unders right now. So there is value in the pick, even though it may not look like it right now. Of his 13 tons for the year, 11 with 127 or above. So people aren't picking Dangerfield, and there's really not much of a reason to, especially because the two questions are right now in Geelong: who's taking Kelly's mid-minutes, and how much does Danger play forward? So does he take up 10% more mid-time? Or is his role stay the same and he's still playing fairly consistent forward minutes? And we won't really... I think the preseason won't even tell us that.
I think they're in premiership tilt. They came first. They won premierships. Dangerfield is in the guts. Not only that, it sounded not so good there, Chris, but only 4 scores were under 97.
Oh, yeah.
For the year. So then, yes, he only had so many tons, and they were big tons, and he had a lot of fairly average scores. But when you're getting a guy pretty much hitting 97 and above most of the time, and he had a few bad rounds and cost people SuperCoach points, and that's why people probably got upset, because they were making him a captain or a vice captain option, and he stunk it for a week. But when you come down to it, his scores included a 163, a 156, a 154, a 149, a 146, a 146, a 141. He has huge numbers.
The upside's just too big to ignore.
And the reason why, I'm actually looking at just players that are durable in general. I mean, you look at Dangerfield, and this is where we get options that we don't normally get. McRae's been good of late. Lockie Neal has hardly missed a game. Dustin Martin's hardly missed a game. Dangerfield's hardly missed a game. Why would you not be starting these super durable players to start and fill that mesh that you can then take risks on?
I absolutely agree with you. And the bigger question is, how do you go into a season not starting Dangerfield? Do you want to go into a game every weekend with someone with a VC on Danger, and you want to just test the waters with that?
Having him against an Oliver?
Oh man!
But
there's no way I want to be that guy.
And here's where people get so caught up and confused on last year. And but if I waited last year, I could have picked up Dangerfield super cheap. I could have picked him up super cheap when he got that 20.
It's not that expensive
when
now.
he got injured twice, I know, but when he got injured twice, I could pick him up for 400k. So some people think about last year and going, what happened last year? So this year I'm going to hold off, and then this year they might get burnt. Don't think too much about the priors.
I find it hard to believe that you wouldn't start Dangerfield, but you'd start Fife, for instance.
Correct.
I think that Fife and Dangerfield are the same, except Dangerfield plays more games. So,
and he has a high ceiling.
I find it, if you're picking 3 midfielders right now, my personal opinion is you're picking Dangerfield, you're picking Dunkley, and you're picking Lockie Neal. Those are my 3 that I would absolutely say should be in most teams. Now, 2 of those are underpriced, and 1, Lockie Neal, I think, regardless of what happens, he's probably the most consistent guy that can average you 120. So just pay the extra money.
Yeah. Based on ceiling, you're looking at Dunkley and that. Dunkley, Danger, Neal and stuff for sure. Based on ceiling. They have the biggest highs. But I still think...
They've also, so when... and we'll go through this in the Western Bulldogs pod in 2 weeks, but Dunkley averaged 128 once he went into the midfield for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
He's only priced at 114 or 113 or something like that, or might be a little bit more than that. Sorry, I have to have a look at it. So he's underpriced at least 10 points. So you're looking at these guys going, well, these guys have the potential to be the number one Supercoach player next year. That's who I'm thinking. If I'm thinking, all right, who am I going to have in my midfield? Who's the ones that are going to win me games? Who's going to be the potential to be number one this year? And there's so many of them right now, but Dangerfield doesn't miss games. Dunkley doesn't miss games.
Where did you finish this year, Chris? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's going to be my response every time we disagree. Every time.
I just think that it's too easy.
No,
it's a good way of looking at
fair.
things.
It's fair. And that's why we have these discussions to talk about the pros and cons of each person and the way to go. So it's to give you ideas on what to look for when you start to look at the preseason, or you start to, maybe they get rested or something, trying to have a look at, picking who's who.
He's still a top 5 player in the AFL, and
Dangerfield's been in my side every team I've picked so far.
The next rundown, players like Treloar, Oliver Bont, he's got them covered in my opinion.
Yep.
And he's competing with the guys that are above him.
Correct.
So I think he's value.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, Mitch Duncan. So Mitchy Duncan, another injury, I'm assuming.
Avoid, yeah.
I think he was injured at the back end of last year.
Do you not read my spreadsheets, Chris?
Not at
all.
all.
My God. Well, at least this is a fresh opinion.
I don't think. Look, I don't think he's going to be a top tier draft choice either way.
No.
But basically,
avoid. Even in draft and stuff, standard 100% avoid Duncan at this point in time. Standard, I am letting someone else pick him at overs. Okay, so basically he got injured in the final, right? So he hurt his knee, not so bad, not too serious. He then had end of season shoulder surgery, and then he had a later minor operation straight after that. I think on his knee or something or other, a separate occasion. But he's not actually going to resume running. He's not going to start running until sometime end of January. So that's 3 operations in one off season. 2 operations and a knee injury. That doesn't suit me.
Doesn't change what I'm about to say.
Okay, good.
Look, so he had last year he had 16 tons for the entire year, which is quite consistent, of course.
Oh, he's very good.
But one score sub 76, and only one score, of course, above 126, which was 144. So he has a fairly good standard deviation in his scoring patterns.
Yeah.
He definitely can get back to say a 110 average if he's fully fit. But really where I see him is, again, he's that upgrade target, right? He's probably going to be somewhere between 500 to 550k.
Draft is not too bad. He is consistent. I mean, he averaged 110 for his first 13 rounds, but then 92 after that. But the benefit, again, is he's durable. He's played 85 out of 88 games the last 4 seasons.
I think even though he starts running at the end of January, I think he plays round 1.
Oh, I think so too.
Absolutely,
but
guaranteed.
It's more like he'll start slow.
Yeah.
Usually with injury people, FYI, they're the ones I usually try and target in my draft trade negotiations. So you pick the people that have been injured, they start slow, and then you're like, oh, they're not going so well, and then you try and offer something for them, a 2-for-1 or something or other. Players that are crap that are doing well originally for the first month and a half, and then you trade them and you get them. It's great.
And then you lose to me.
No, I didn't get to trade last year because everyone's aware of my tricks now. It's been like 4 years and you bastards won't trade with me anymore. I try and do all these 2-for-1s and you're like, no, I don't want to do a 2-for-1.
Now on to someone who's unlikely to play round 1, and that's obviously Joel Selwood. So he's just had pre-season surgery, I suppose. I would be surprised if he lines up round 1. There is a small chance that he does. But I don't think his mid-minutes increase. I don't see him as the answer to Tim Kelly. And I do see him as he's now playing for the team and playing the role that the team needs him to play.
Yeah, you never know, though. He might go from being on that wing to going back into the guts, but he is getting old. It's an interesting one. I think he'll pinch hit. If the occasion needs
he'll definitely get in there.
He'll pinch it.
If it's the last quarter, they need something out of the midfield.
He'll throw his head on the line every day.
Of course he's going in the guts.
But you are correct. He did have hamstring tendonitis, which doesn't give me much confidence. He did have surgery on that. Expected to start running in January, so he will be another slow starter, like Stewart, like Selwood, like Duncan. Geelong, especially seeing that they went quite deep.
Problem with hamstring, obviously, when you injure a hamstring, is you can't run until you get cleared.
No.
So that means your fitness base, even if he does start running at the end of January, still may not start round 1. He might not be up to full fitness. So he might have to play a couple of games in the VFL before he actually is allowed to play matches. Or they'll do some match sim, whatever they do. But I don't think at all for standard. And I know a lot of people are thinking about Joel Selwood as a mid-pricer because he's 465k,
Yep.
and Tim Kelly's gone, and blah blah blah. Avoid.
Yep. See, at least if you do a shoulder like Hurley or Fife or something like that, they can run. They get their fitness up. Whereas these guys, like Izaha Rakas, who had issues and they laid him off to try and help rest, and then you have surgery because it wasn't fixed. He's had no fitness at all for so long, and then trying to catch that up. It's like Jack Stevens trying to drop 10 kilos over a summer. It's hard work.
It's not, and the older you get, the harder it is to lose weight. I know, trust me. So on to the next one, who I think may get that some more mid-time, and that is Sam Menegola, 441k, 81.3. Look, certainly one to keep an eye on, especially with Kelly gone down. And the thing about Menegola, he's shown a history. If he gets the right role, he can score. So it's not too far out of the realm to say Sam Menegola can average 100 this year. So I don't see him as someone that we need to pick, but we definitely need to watch him in the preseason.
We're not picking him in standard.
How he goes.
Not picking him in standard. He's a midfielder only, which hurts.
It does hurt when he was averaging 100 as a forward.
Forward, it makes sense. If he was a forward this year, he would actually be an option. But Absolutely. As a midfielder, even in draft, yes, you're getting value. I mean, what did he average? He averaged 81. So for draft, I'd pick him up at a high 80, low 90
exactly
average.
Right. Absolutely.
You get value. Pick him up at 90. You got between 80 and 100. You get a bit of value either way.
I reckon I reckon 85. You can pick him up.
Yeah, you can get him.
I reckn last midfielder spot.
It'd be good. I'd be happy with that for sure. I reckon really Menegola will be. I reckon he's done it before. I think they will then. They've used him when Kelly wasn't there, so they'll use him again.
Two more that could also benefit from Kelly departing. Quinton Narkle. They've been trying to get as much mid-time into him as possible. They love him down there at Geelong. He's a fantastic player. Body right, role, all that you need to look at before even considering him. Especially, you wouldn't consider him in standard, but maybe in draft formats.
I actually emailed their PR team, Chris, a couple of weeks ago, actually. I did.
And they got back to you?
No, but I had a great idea. So Geelong PR, basically, I said what they should do. I was like, you guys, you need some publicity because Geelong suck. So they lose to Brisbane by a point. I mean, come on. So I just said to them, basically, what you need some pink hair dye or something crazy to make him stand out. So you can call him Narkle Sparkle. That's a thing. Make it pink. The Narkle Sparkle.
What's that line from? Have you seen?
If he doesn't do well, you can call him the debacle. Like, what's wrong with this?
You've taken it too far. Have you seen Donnie Darko?
No. Anyway, save it for
I had
later.
A really great sparkle motion joke.
This is my segment.
Sorry, I'm the one who jokes.
Yes, I'm the joke maker.
And of course, the other one is Constable. So I do see Constable as someone that if he ever actually got a run. Now, I've heard some mixed reports on him from some fairly good sources that the only reason he's not playing is because he just does not have a tank and he can only play midfield. And imagine playing midfield without a tank. So he needs to develop his tank more before they'll give him more minutes and more first team action. And so he's not definitely in consideration.
I was going to say, normally generals get a tank, Chris, not constables.
I know, right? Constable. What's How Much Your Mother? Were they like major? Yeah, anyway, cool. It's been a long time. Obviously, there's no real ruck premiums. Ruck Stanley's not really. I don't think he's a genuine
Ruck Stanley.
Ruck Stanley. Reece Stanley, he averaged 85. He's not really in consideration at all.
Rumour is Radaglia is actually going to. They're trying to tout him as the ruck solution. So I wouldn't be surprised if Stanley gets shit canned at some point this year, and Radaglia with his athleticism, he's like a poor man's Nick Nat-Nui. As far as his leap and agility, not being racist. His ability and to get nice and high in his agility, it does remind me of really.
His movement's fantastic.
He's a mobile man.
He's
I like it.
A beast, by the way.
He is. He's
fantastic.
a big boy.
He can take a grab too. He just jumps on people.
I would rather watch him in the ruck than I would Stanley, and Stanley gets you a couple good things.
So hit or miss. Yeah. Stanley is just like super hot one week, super cold the next.
Yeah,
don't like it.
I actually thought Geelong got a good deal from Saints back then, but now when he's in the ruck, I'm like, he just bulked up so much. It's like, mate, you used to be a mobile forward, a lanky kid, and now you're just too big to move.
I think he was only selected for a while because he's the only fit ruckman on the list.
Anyway,
now speaking of Superman himself, Gary Ablett, forward premium, 519k, 95.7 he averaged last year. Look, it wouldn't be SuperCoach if we didn't have a little bit of a spotlight on Gaza. But he obviously moved heavily forward into the forward line. And I had a look at his stat lines. And
They're pretty good.
He had some career highs in categories that obviously because playing forward, things like goal assists. He got back. He was very high tackle numbers.
Yeah.
Obviously kicked quite a lot of goals. I think most goals since 2008. So
He's done well.
He converted it quite well. He was moved into the midfield. Like, he still played a little bit of midfield.
Yeah, a little bit.
At times when they needed an extra mid in there. And
Yeah.
it's funny, like a couple of games he goes like 160 SuperCoach. And he's just dominate. And you just go, oh yeah, that's right. That's Gary Ablett.
Yeah, that's Gary Ablett.
I forget how amazing that guy was.
Well, the key note was he played 87.9% time on ground, which is huge for him as well. For someone who everyone ripped on for being injured or injury prone and whatever have you, he played a high amount of time on ground playing that forward role.
And he only missed one game.
Yeah, so good.
That's insane for someone like of his age.
That's so good. Not only that, 13 of his scores were over 90 plus.
Absolutely.
And five scores under 80.
Playing
he had big ceiling.
Pocket, half forward flank.
It was good.
So, look, the issue is I do see again that time on ground going down. I see him playing less games.
He's 36 years old. Let's not.
This is his last shout. I think that this is last year.
Oh, I reckon they could go again. I reckon if they lose the grand final,
I don't necessarily think he wants to.
No, if they lose the grand final, I reckon he'll go one more.
I know he wants to win another flag.
Well, but I heard his partner saying like how much he has to do just to get up for games. Like he must be battered, so battered. Even now, 36, and his wife's like, "Oh, I know how much you have to do to get up for games." Like it must be a toll. Imagine mentally being older, being older. Well, maybe not. Well, he'll get paid after.
He'd still be on $500,000 a year.
Nah, he'd be on less
sponsorships.
He'd be on less. Gold Coast probably paid half that
salary.
Don't they have
like a veterans cap and something? Like surely, I'm sure he gets paid.
They have a veterans cap till 35, and then over 35, it's free. Whatever you want to pay them, it's free.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, for free.
I think he could. I mean, with the forward line being so low in terms of average right now, it looks like he could still even be a forward upgrade target.
He could even he could be top 10 easy.
Oh, well, I still think so.
It's possible.
But who's paying $520K for him as a forward?
No one.
No one's doing that because the uncertainty, especially again, you look at Dusty Lockie. Like outside of that, who's going to go with Gary as the unique against those two? I'm not taking that chance. So I don't think he's going to be a very popular pick. You might want to look at him again for that round 12 upgrade. Could be okay.
Yeah, possible, particularly
see how you go.
If you're going against your mates or something something not so serious or cash league, he'd be a great little option after the bye because he could win you some rounds. I don't think he's going to cost you many unless he doesn't play. If he looks fit, have a look at how many times they're travelling far away. But as you said, they're playing the last round 17 onwards in Melbourne.
Absolutely, the back end's pretty good, man.
SuperCoach finals in your draft, in your cash leagues for standard or whatever have you. He'd be a great option, and not many people will have him.
Well, I actually think he could be a decent pick in draft, but he's not a value pick.
No.
And I think that the name Gary Ablett, someone's going to jump on him.
At 95.7 average, someone's jumping on.
And I'm not the guy that's jumping on. He would have to be my second forward at that average. And so that means I must have got a Lockie Whitfield or something.
Yeah, that makes you feel a bit funny. Yeah,
and true. It does. It kind of makes me a little bit sick.
Makes you cringe, right?
Yeah.
Gary Ablett is your third or fourth forward. It'd be like,
Gary, traditionally, unfortunately, love him, but he has had body issues over his career. And he hasn't played out full seasons because he gets injured. Now, I think part of the solution to that is because he's not playing so heavy in the guts, he's not playing through as much as he was. I reckon it was even worse 2-3 years ago. So, anyway, that leads us on to our next forward, of course, and highly recruited out of St Kilda.
Yes.
Jack Stephen, 361k forward mid. And look, getting DPP was actually a godsend for Stephen this year because if he's that price in the midfield, I'm not touching him.
Well, it's just the Bryce Gibbs all over again.
Oh, it's an absolute recipe for disaster.
Now,
but
Chris, you had real strong opinions on this on the line.
I do, and I still do. But I have had further information to come to light, which I will touch on as well. But
touch me, Chris.
Here's the thing about Jack Stephen. I don't think, personally, if I'm Geelong, I'm not playing him in midfield. However, according to sources, he's going to be playing midfield. And if he is playing midfield, then he's a shout to average 90 to 95. If he's playing forward, he'll be lucky to average 80. So, again, it's role, and I think they will. I think we'll find that out in the preseason.
Yeah, fair.
He's super fit right now, according to reports.
Really?
So I think that he will actually be moving towards going into the JLT and blending with that midfield group.
So it sounds like he's pretty happy.
Yeah, which
That's good.
And
I'm
look,
happy to hear that.
change is as good as a holiday.
Yeah.
So you'd think that, in all honesty, if they recruited him to be a replacement for Tim Kelly, no, I do not think he's playing 80% mid-time, but I do think that he might play, say, 65 or 70% mid-time, and it will be enough to get him to, say, a 90 or low 90s average, which should be enough to be a top 10 selection. Maybe not top 6, but top 10.
But if you can spend that extra 100 and something K, that'd be good.
Exactly right. And so it's the extra 100K would be to go up to a Parish or a Dawson or a... Who was the other one that we're looking at? It's John
saving that money,
like
you might be able to actually make some upgrades elsewhere. Which
exactly,
money well spent.
Absolutely. So
even if he averages you 90, that 100K you could have spent might have made you 10 points elsewhere. So.
Heavy preseason watch.
Yeah.
Because if he's playing too much forward, you got to can him because I don't think he's going to be value. Do I think he's a better pick than Devon Smith? Yes, absolutely. I think he's a much better pick than Devon Smith. I think there's more chance of him playing midfield minutes than Devon Smith playing
and
midfield
playing
minutes.
and winning games.
That's also true, but they need speed in midfield. So if he's still playing with that speed, the problem with Geelong's midfield is that apart from danger, they really lack leg speed in the midfield. So that's really what they're looking.
No,
to
they're
do,
not going to tag
midfielder.
him in a Geelong midfield either. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean the other consideration is if he does get tagged,
Why would you tag Stephen? In that midfield.
Stephen can be fairly dominating when he will
I
win games off his own.
I know he
boot.
can be dominating, but I'm saying why would you tag him and not like a Dangerfield or someone or other? Surely.
If Dangerfield's playing forward, he's already getting tagged essentially. So their mix is going to be unique to see how they go into the season, how much percentage midfield time he's going to get. If he can play midfield the way that he did 2 years ago, it's a consideration. The problem is he hasn't played midfield in 2 years. Like the way that he
It's like riding a bike.
even last year when he scored well, he was like there was a couple of games where he kicked 4 goals and scored well. Like he won a game off his own boot. He's a match winner, but is so inconsistent. It's ridiculous. Over his career, he's averaged a lot more in wins than losses.
That could be good.
That's great going to Geelong.
Yeah.
It's because he should win a lot more games, therefore he should average more. So 90 to 95, I'm thinking, but could be as low as 80 if he's playing forward. So
Well, if that's the case and it looks crap in the first
You'll know
two
the
rounds, you could just move him on to the next bloke.
well,
Eh?
I don't know if there's like you just got to have cash in your account. If you're going to do that, and you're not sold on him being
You might as well go Heaney.
a keeper, well, you may as well, or you've either got to have the extra money in your account, or you just got to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm not really condoning that.
Sideways
If you're not-
into Devon
If you're not
Smith.
confident, don't pick him.
Devon Smith on 200s.
Devon
Catch you later.
Devon Smith's not starting with 2 back-to-back times,
Maybe.
mate. No way. All right. Now, with a lot of... I'll go into the rookies, of course. With a lot of depth now, having played games, there's not a huge amount of rookies. So similar to, say, Lions now, or...
No, Lions have a lot of Carlton. They've played games.
Collingwood, for
Everyone's
example.
had like 6 to 10 career games, so
Yeah.
everyone from Carlton's expensive, which is stupid.
So most of the new players will start through the VFL. One that might debut is Cooper Stevens. He was picked 16. He's a mid only, 139k, but he fractured his fibula in round 3 last year. So picked 16 with a broken leg. So he's obviously slid. They ranked him a lot higher than that. He's seen as a big-bodied inside mid with high endurance attributes. In his bottom age year, he only averaged those 16.5 disposals and 4 clearances, but he had a contested possession rate of 54%. So a heavy inside ball winner, and very noteworthy given his lack of game time last year. And that was as a bottom ager in the under-18 championships. So playing against bigger bodies, playing against older people. So very interesting to note. The other draft, the other option that they got in was Sam de Koning. He's a 201 centimeter key position utility player.
Carlton Ruck's brother.
Yeah. So he probably won't play the first year.
Well, you never know. If it's just Stanley and him, you might get a go.
Well, maybe. And Francis Evans, medium forward. Both of those guys are viewed as long-term prospects. The other one that they got was a highly touted draftee, Cameron Tahini. He was actually picked 50, but should be on the radar at some stage this year. He was tipped as a first rounder, but had an injury-interrupted year and slid massively towards the back. So his stats and all of his production in the combine were completely overshadowed.
I
by
just
his injuries.
I rate everyone Geelong picks in general. So
Yeah,
that's a good rule to have.
That was a classic. Who's their recruitment manager? What's his name?
Wells.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stephen Wells. Yeah. So that was a classic pick, apparently, according to him. Really, the big one is, of course, Nakai Cockatoo, who is obviously not a rookie, but he's rookie priced. 148k forward mid. Likely to be best 22 when fit. He ticks all the boxes of a player who should make enough cash to be worth consideration. In previous years, he played 11, 10, and 10 games in successive years, and he's basically had 2 years off. So in 2018, he only played 2 games, and he had hamstring and adductor issues. He came back mid last year, was playing VFL, suffered some hamstring tightness, and they just said, whoa, just sit this round out, champ. And they put him on ice at the end of the year because they don't want him to get re-injure himself and not be available this year, especially when they had so much depth already in the
Yeah, and they were
AFL
killing
side.
it. They were like top of the
They
ladder.
didn't need him. So
Yep.
they do want to obviously get him into games this year ASAP. He's, by all reports, he's fully fit, running on the ground well. But again, someone who has had consistent soft tissue injuries, so be wary of him. But he's so cheap, you can probably take a risk at the 145k mark. His best return was a 63 average. So even if he averaged 63 from 148k, I would be super happy with that. But I anticipate that given his age profile and experience now, that should be closer to 70 plus. So just to roll out.
Yeah, depends
course,
on role as well. For the
obviously,
rollout.
yeah.
Keep an eye out.
Again, someone who could go into the midfield for Tim Kelly. There's like about 8 of them. This is what I mean. They don't really.
They don't need it. They can just. Yeah, people might get slightly more minutes or different role variations.
They've just got so much depth.
Or off the bench, or on the field instead of off the bench, and then rotate.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So the heavy preseason watch, as I said, Cockatoo, Stephen, Menegola, and Constable, with Stephen, Constable, and Menegola being the biggest breakout contenders at the club.
I probably wouldn't say Constable could be draft relevant, but I'd rather someone else take the punt on him.
There's no way unless...
No, but he did average like 80 odd for the handful of games he played, but on
He's
a
more
draft
keeper
on a draft list,
relevant,
keeper league relevant, but on a standard draft league, you look at it and go, 80 average, but you don't realize he only played a handful of games.
He's a waiver wire special.
Let someone take that option off your hands for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that pretty much wraps us up.
It does.
Yeah, next we'll have the Gold Coast, followed by GWS and whatever have you. So, look, until then, please do keep us up. And thanks to everyone that sent us messages too so far. We really appreciate it. Just helps our little day sometimes.
It's starting to ramp up. We've had a lot of new likes. We've had a lot of action.
It's been good, and sometimes we forget how much people enjoy our segments. So from a couple of guys that just started this because we had opinions and thought we could do a pretty good job.
We're pretty opinionated. Or I'm pretty opinionated.
He is. I keep him in check. But look, just really humbled, and we just love hearing from you guys.
Podcast 100, sir. Well done.
Oh yes, 100. Anyway, if you do listen to this, please do shout out or comment saying congrats on the 100. Let's see how many people do that for us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Bless you. Love you.
Cheers.
All right, boy.